Wow, Grace Street is filled to capacity.
Yes,
with
it is.
Jonathan Cahn. Rabbi is back in the house.
Great to be here. The predominant pattern, if you read the book, the predominant pattern is not a day crash, even though that's a dramatic pattern, which we saw in two of them, and there's something that happened with that. The predominant pattern in the mystery of the Shemitah is that of a rising stock market, and then it begins a long-term collapse, which is exactly what... This has happened in the last 7 of them. It not only wiped out Wall Street, it wiped out global trade, collapsed, commodities, oil collapsed, industrial production collapsed, everything. It's still collapsing, by the way, into this year. But I'll share that. I'll show it to you visually. So it's not a matter of feeling. It's not a matter of our talk. It's absolute real. God is very real. He's very exact. He is in charge of everything, including Wall Street, including our bank accounts.
Yeah.
He's that much in charge.
Yeah.
You always share mysteries, and if you want to get... This is the, what, 16th, is it? 16.
Wow.
16.
I've been here 16 times.
This is Rabbi's 16th visit to our show, and he always brings a new group of mystery. Do you mind if could we do one today?
Yeah.
Right now?
Yeah, we'll talk about it. Can't do every... I'll touch on it.
How about Ishmael?
Yes.
The mystery of Ishmael.
Yes. Now, this is prophetic. This has affected every one of our lives. I mean, to this day, you're talking about news reports, is all linked to a mystery that goes back to the tents of Abraham. And it's amazing. The whole world, the piece of the world hangs on a mystery that happened in this desert dweller tent with these 2 sons. And it's behind everything from Islam to Muhammad to Osama bin Laden to Yasser Arafat to the threats on America, all the way back to Abraham's tent. I mean, really, every answer is in the Bible. I mean, Bible explains everything. And so we go back to Abraham. Genesis. God gives him the promise, I will give you a son. A great nation will come from you. But as we know, Sarah comes up with an idea. Well, God's not doing it, so you know what? We got to help God out, and that's always a danger sign. You're going to help God out, and you go into the handmaid Hagar, and you'll have a baby through her because I can't have a baby. So he does, and what happens comes out Ishmael. Here's Abraham's firstborn son, Ishmael. Now Ishmael, is there. Now keep in mind, he is there for years before there's anybody else. He is viewed as the heir to Abraham. I mean, when God speaks to Abraham and says, I'm going to do a great thing, what Abraham says is, yes, Ishmael will be the one. So everybody thought it was Ishmael. Everybody thought Ishmael was the one of the promise, including Abraham, Hagar had to have, Sarah had to have. So they thought this was the way. So he's growing up as the one. Now, at one point, God gives a prophecy concerning Ishmael. Now, God promises God will make Ishmael a great nation as well. He'll give him much. But he also says he'll be wild. He also says his sword will be against everybody. His hand will be against everybody. So it's going to be a wild kind of thing going on there with Ishmael. But he's going to be blessed. But the thing is, keep in mind, now here's what happens. Then, all of a sudden, God comes back and says, now, no, you, Sarah, old Sarah, you are going to have a baby. And Sarah laughs, and God says, Sarah, why'd you laugh? And Sarah says, I didn't laugh. He says, no, you did. And the name of the baby is going to be called Laughter because they laughed. So in Hebrew, that's Yitzhak, which is Isaac. So you have Ishmael, and you have Isaac. Now, what happens with this thing? What happens is, because of the conflict between the 2 sons, it comes to a point where Sarah says, and then God says, no, Abraham, it's okay, it's my will. You're going to have to send away Hagar and Ishmael. Okay, so Hagar and Ishmael go away to the desert. God takes care of them and gives a promise again. He confirms, I'm going to make a great nation. But think of something. We don't usually think about this. Imagine you're Ishmael. Okay, you're Ishmael, and you're growing up as the beloved son of your father. And then all of a sudden comes another child. Now, sibling rivalry is a problem to begin with, but here's another child. Now he's the one. So first of all, what you're going to be feeling? Probably jealousy, probably resentful. Then you lose everything. When you're about 13, you lose everything. You lose the birthright. You lose what looks like your inheritance. You lose your father. You lose all that honored position. You lose all that. what is that going to, and he's just becoming a teenager now. What is that going to do to him? What's that going to do to his being? What's that? And from him come much of the Arab peoples, as we know. Now, let me just say something, the mystery, who is it today? Now, there's some who say, no, there's no question, from Ishmael came the Ishmaelites. From the Ishmaelites, there's no question that the blood of the Ishmaelites is throughout the Arab world, whether there's also other blood as well. But we have ancient records from the Babylonians, even from the Assyrians, that link up the Ishmaelites with the Arab peoples. We even have records of Arab peoples before Muhammad, before Islam came, where they said, we are the children of Ishmael. Before, Ishmael, now when Muhammad came, he said, I'm from Ishmael, we're from Ishmael. So now, no matter what, they've taken up the mantle of Ishmael. But the point is that, number one, the Arab civilization had some great, wonderful things, and I love Arab people, and I love when they get saved. One of my greatest blessings as a Jewish believer is to find an Arab believer who loves the Lord. It's the most wonderful thing in the world. Amen. But there's a mystery going on throughout history. You have the people here, clearly the blood of Ishmael is there among the Arabic world, and the mantle of Ishmael, they've taken up. If you read the Quran, it focuses a lot on Ishmael. It says Ishmael is the one. It says Ishmael, not Isaac. It says Abraham offered up Ishmael. It says Ishmael and Hagar, they came to Mecca. And then Ishmael died in Mecca. The whole thing. So you've got this whole Ishmael thing going on, the spirit of Ishmael, all that. Now, but to understand this, what does this reveal? Number one, about what's happening. Number one, God says, I will make a great nation. So God said that way back 4,000 years ago. He's done it. The Arab peoples are one of the most populous peoples in the world, number one. Mm-hmm. But number two, also, it's telling you from Genesis, from the tents of Abraham, that the destiny of the Arab people is linked to the Jewish people. They're all there together. That's why there's a link between, Arabs and Jews are cousins. You wouldn't know it because the enemy so destroyed this thing and so used it. But in the end, they're going to be back together. In the end, there's a good ending to this. The end of the story, you have Isaac and Ishmael actually together burying Abraham at the end. That's kind of a foreshadow. But right now, they're linked to Ishmael. But what else do you see? You have among this, you have Ishmael. Think about him. He lost his father. Okay? So what do you have in Islam? You have God has no son. They cannot call God Father. Correct? You cannot. It calls him the merciful. Cannot call God Father. What? Because they lost the Father years ago. And it's kind of like saying, well, if we don't have the Father, nobody has a Father. You look at the Temple Mount. What do you see? It says on the Temple Mount, on that dome, it says God has no son. So it's so much. So it's going to be against anyone who says, I'm a child of God. God is my daddy. It's going to be against all that. It's going to be against Isaac, going to be against all that. Also, you want to look at all these things. There's a rage in much of this history. In much of not all, but in much of Arabic history, much of Islamic, there's a rage. There's a fear. Why? Because the answer is in Ishmael. Ishmael would have a rage from that time on. He would have an anger from that time on. He'd have a resentment. One of the things about in this, you see this spirit in terrorism. It's a resentment about anybody who has privilege. It's a resentment of anyone who says, I'm loved. It's a resentment against the Jewish people. Why? Why against the Jewish people? Because that's Isaac. So it's Ishmael and Isaac. And it's also about America. Because, first of all, if you're born again, if you're a Christian, your link is through Isaac. Your link is through Isaac. Messiah is the son of the Father. He's the beloved of the Father. So there's going to be a war against that as well. There's going to be a war against America because you have all that together. You have Jew, you have Christian, and you have what looks like blessing. So you've got all that. So therefore, when you have all those factors that are all explained in the tents of Abraham, you've got a spirit that says, I'm the outcast one, so that leads to radicalism. That leads to, I can't get it this way, so I'm going to get it this way. I'm going to get it by the sword. I'm going to get it by, I'm going to take it back. Why is there such a focus on the land of Israel? It's all there in that mystery. Why? Because that was the inheritance of Isaac from Abraham. That's what Ishmael thought should have been his, the land of Israel. Now, the Arab people have much more land, have gigantic areas. They just don't have, but there's a concern about this little land because that's what Ishmael lost in his mind. That's what he lost. It's the land of Israel. What also was the promise? the covenants, all that came from Abraham to Isaac. The covenants, the revelation of God, that came through Isaac, came through Israel. So what did Ishmael do? Well, we're going to have our own revelation. We're going to have our own. We're going to have our own religion. We're going to have and we're going to take back everything, and we're going to say they all belong to us. Now we take the prophets. We take Jesus, but we'll call him a prophet. We'll take everything you have, but we'll say we'll make it, and we're better. We've got more. That's exactly the spirit of Ishmael. That's the whole mystery. Do you know that if you go to a city, even Jerusalem, the mosque has to be the tallest thing in the city? Why? It's like saying I'm going to prove myself. It's kind of like it goes back from this trauma. I'm going to prove myself, and I'm bigger, I'm higher, I'm better. If you've got a tower, I'll bring it down. 9/11.
Wow.
You have all that, and so it tells us, the account. If you want to understand, everything from terrorism to the PLO to Hamas to Hezbollah to Islam to all these things, the answer is there. It all began in the book of beginnings. It all began in the tense of Abraham, and everything you see from the anger, the fury. Even suicide bomb. Why would anybody have their kids kill them? Well, if you feel like, listen, you're outcast, you don't have much value, you're not loved, you're going to prove it by anger, well, you can do those things. You can blow yourself up in anger, for that reason. So we need to pray for Ishmael, at the same time. But we have to understand Ishmael. We have to be praying for those who are in Islam. We have to pray for the radical Islamists. We have to pray for all those of the Arab world who don't know the Lord. The ultimate thing is God still loved Ishmael. He still had a promise for Ishmael. And it tells us something in our life that, if you're looking at, God has blessed you. If you don't look at what God's blessed you, you're going to end up being angry, bitter. You're going to look at all that you don't have. You're going to be putting a curse on your life. But, in the end of the story, the other thing is that as believers, we can sometimes have a spirit of Ishmael. And what I mean is this. We can have a spirit that we are not loved, that we'll never really be loved. We know the words, we know the theology, but I don't really feel that with God. I'm kind of the outcast. I've been rejected. Well, that's an Ishmael kind of spirit. Right. God doesn't want that because that brings a curse. And God, therefore it says the antidote is God so loved us, he gave his beloved son that we could be beloved too. It says, live your life as beloved children. Now, meaning, you may not have been a beloved child. Doesn't matter. Live your life now as a beloved child because you happen to be that, but live as if you were because you are that. The answer to so much in our own life is that we find who we are in God, which is to his beloved children. That we can say, not just that we can call him Father, but it says you will call him Abba, which isn't Father. It's Daddy, Daddy that. Yeah. And so that's it. So you want to, and there's so much more to this, but I'm just going to give an example that there is the Bible, everything we're seeing. Amazing. The whole world hangs on what happened with Abraham and these two little sons. Way back. The Bible has every answer and every explanation. We must pray and we must love Ishmael. We must love Ishmael. We must share the gospel with Ishmael. God's by his grace. I've heard this. I've actually met eyewitnesses who have literally seen visions throughout the Arab world truly of Jesus. God is showing people who don't know him at all literally visions of Jesus, and they're getting saved.
Praise
we need to
God.
pray that the veil of Ishmael will be removed and that he and Isaac will join hands again in the God of Abraham.
Amen. Amen. Wow.
And you're saying that
powerful.
Ishmael is connected to almost all the warfare that Israel has today.
Yeah.
What we're seeing, that's why if we study the Word, we learn. Yeah. We learn what God says, and it's unchangeable.
Yeah. Yeah.
God's Word is the same yesterday, today, and forever.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, and it's still, I look at it, the book of Genesis in Hebrew, it's Bereshit, which means literally the beginning. It's the beginning of everything. It's the beginning of the fall. You want to see why everything's happening. It's the beginning of the Arab-Israeli conflict. It's the beginning of it's the beginning of the promises of Messiah. Everything is there. The answer is in God, in everything. There's nothing outside of God. The answer is, we're still being affected because God gives his word. The fact that the Jewish people still exist, that should not be at all. They should have been gone thousands of years ago. But they exist because God said it. They're in the news because God said it. God is behind the news.
So basically you're saying ISIS is connected to Ishmael.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So is the PLO, so is Hezbollah, so is Hamas, so is Osama bin Laden, so is Saddam Hussein. All of that is clearly, even they themselves will say they're linked to Ishmael. Even they will say, but I don't think they understand all that means. But that the beginning is all there, and it kind of also tells us something. And God will redeem it, and the Arab people are a great people. But at the same time, it also tells you something else. Don't try to help God out. Do God's will.
That's
do God's
good.
will. Be patient. He'll do it His way, and you'll be used with it. But and have faith too as well. That's with it. But yes, and notice something too. When Isaac, in a sense, came back to the land, that's when all this hell started. That's when when the Jewish people came back to their inheritance. That's when everything went crazy in the world.
Yeah.
Among Ishmael, but also, remember, the enemy knows a bit about the future. He knows enough that when the Jewish people come back to that land, it is a sign that his game is up. It is a sign that Messiah is coming. So that's why the whole world is in an uproar. That's why the United Nations has voted to condemn Israel. That's why there's all this terrorism. That's why, because the enemy is crazy. It's not about, ultimately, it's not Ishmael. Ultimately, it's the enemy behind that. And he will stir up anything he can. He will stir it up. God would view it, God's plan would be one day that Isaac and Ishmael will join hands. And that's in the Bible. There's going to be that in that day. But the enemy does everything he can to mess everything up. It's hard to even imagine that, but it's going to happen. It's true. It's true. But it's a sign of the enemy. When the enemy goes crazy, and a little word to our lives, again, so true. When the enemy goes crazy, don't get discouraged. When you're being attacked, you're in God's will. Don't get encouraged, because it is a sign of how big the purposes of God is for your life.
Amen.
The enemy's not wasting his time. He knows.
I've got to ask you a question while we're still on this.
Yeah.
You mentioned the different countries in the line of Ishmael. Okay? And you were naming, and so we kind of wonder sometimes why nations do what they do. Could you name them again for me? Name some of them?
Yeah, I will say it this way. And, it doesn't matter. There is no question, whatever one feels of these, there's no question that the blood of Ishmael is throughout the Arab world. They were the Ishmaelites. The Ishmaelites were linked to the Arabs. Ancient times goes through. So this would affect the nation of Jordan, which, by the way, also has Edom, also has Esau in it. That's Edom. That's where Esau was. Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Kuwait, Dubai, basically the whole Egypt somewhat. Egypt has a lot of others. Egypt actually don't consider themselves Arab. They have others in it, but they have some. No question, there's some. But through the entire, all those things basically that have warred against Israel. If you look at the wars on Israel, basically it's that. Iran is not Arab, but Iran is Persian. And that's a whole mystery, and even there's a link with that in the Bible. And I'm actually going to talk about the Abrahamic covenant before I leave, and even what's happening in Iran is linked to that. But nevertheless, even those that are not by blood, they have done so by spirit. They are of the Quran. The Quran is saying we have the mantle of Ishmael. So even by blood or by spirit, it's Ishmael.
We'll be right back with Rabbi Jonathan Cahn. But we have some very, very important information I need to bring to you. So many people are talking about what is coming. Hubie Sin, he was on your show,
Revelation in the News.
And as I was kind of reading through what Joseph happened, the Lord was kind of telling me that we need to prepare because there is something coming, a famine's coming. I'm kind of being more conservative with the way that I spend now.
Sure.
Just to make sure that I'm kind of prepared. Like, I'm putting aside more food. I'm buying more food from Pastor Jim. And just to make sure that just in case something's coming, I don't know what it is, but I want to be as prepared as possible because we went through Hurricane Sandy. And when we went through Hurricane Sandy, we saw firsthand what a catastrophe could do. Yeah. And it taught us a lot.
And I'll tell you what, America has mocked God. America is not listening to God. We must be prepared.
That's right.
And Heidi Baker had a vision.
I saw bread lines, soup kitchens, and I saw people wearing beautiful clothing. Their clothing was not worn out. Now, in my nation, when people are hungry, you can tell. I mean, they're in shredded rags. They don't have shoes, or they have flip-flops. Most of them no shoes. They're hungry. They know they're hungry. They come for food, not because they're beggars, but because they're hungry. I said, why are they so well dressed and standing in this line? He said, because it's a suddenly. They're suddenly in need of food. They're suddenly in need of food.
Even Heidi Baker was warning of a famine, and the word that she kept getting was similar to Hubie's, that it was suddenly. It came suddenly.
Yes, people were in their cars, and the cars were newer.
Yes.
And the clothes was, modern
They were still
clothing.
nice. They
so
weren't
they
worn
weren't
down
street
yet.
people's,
Right.
what God was showing her. And there they were in the streets with brand new clothing, standing in food lines, starving.
That's right.
And I believe with all my heart, we are in the great crash, the great explosions, the great starvations, the great judgment of America is coming. Amen. And I believe it's starting this year. In fact, it's starting now. Time to prepare is over. Judgment is coming. We have murdered over almost 70 million, I guess, of our babies now. And so all of these things, we've taken prayer out of the school, Bible reading, all the things. We've taken the Bible and turned it upside down. And so what's going to happen? I believe, in fact, I believe it was Hubie that mentioned it's Revelation 6:8 that's taking place right now.
Yeah, he said famine is coming, and even people like Charisma News, who's been picking up the show, they quoted Revelation 6:8 and pairing it with what Hubie was saying.
And that's what God's been speaking to me about for decades. And I believe we're in the now time. But the saddest part of my heart is they're not preparing this food. We have prepared and we have helped design and create
20-year shelf-life food pre-season, and 20 years is conservative. It could even last up to 30 years.
And so some of you have never, ever stored food, and it's happening. What happened in Brussels, Belgium last week is so important to understand that ISIS said they're going to do the same in America. They plan to take over the world. The Islamic State claimed responsibility for this attack.
That's right.
This was one of the most horrendous attacks in the history of Europe and, of course, the history of the world. It was a horrible thing. The airport was exploded.
That's right. Also, the metro station, the railroad system, the subways there was also experienced a bomb.
And literally closed all of Brussels.
That's right. It's in a complete state of lockdown. The airport has been shut down. The subways have been shut down. The entire city of Brussels is on lockdown right now.
And ISIS has claimed responsibility.
Yeah.
And yet we just go on. We keep calling this radical Islam just people of faith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People in America don't want to hear it, and they're not being prepared. And I just heard from one of the former FBI agents. His name is Steve Rogers.
Yes.
I'd like him to speak right now. Let's roll that tape.
Welcome back to Fox News Alert for you. Belgium and the world on high alert after a wave of deadly bombings in the heart of Europe. Steve Rogers is here for us now. He's a former member of the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force and a retired lieutenant commander in the U.S. Navy's Office of Intelligence. Thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome.
You say that we are in the midst of World War III.
Yes, we are in the midst of World War III, and it's a reality that we're going to have to face in order to combat and defeat ISIS and any terrorist group. In fact, Heather, that's nothing new. The French president said that when France was attacked. The problem we're facing today is that we're not fighting this as a war. We're constantly hearing law enforcement assets are doing this, law enforcement's doing that. We have to do much more than get law enforcement involved, and it's going to take some military might as well as diplomacy.
We just heard John Kasich talking just a moment ago, and he said that we should attack from the air and on the ground?
We're going to have to for the survival of our country. What we see happening in Belgium, as you and I are speaking, is a prelude to what's going to happen here. And I know people don't want to hear that, and I'm not trying to alarm people, but the facts are very, very clear that they're coming here. And what we have to do with all these facts and all the intelligence that we're gathering is to make absolutely sure that we prevent that from happening.
We're in World War III, he said.
Wow.
And so much is happening. 9/11 is going to, the attack that they're planning right now, next, for the United States of America, they say it's bigger than 9/11, what's coming.
That's right. You know, and we have other reports that say top intel officials, U.S. faces the highest terror threat level since 9/11. Right now we're facing that. And right here it says Al-Qaeda chief urges 9/11 style attacks in a new audio message.
You know, one of the commentators mentioned that Washington, D.C. and Brussels are the two capitals of Western civilization.
That's
and
right.
you know what? ISIS says they're coming next.
That's right.
For Washington, D.C. They're planning to do New York City. And what do they call it when they go all at once? They're talking about doing maybe even up to hundreds of attacks on America all at once, even our smaller towns, malls, anything you can think of.
That's right. It's called a day of jihad.
And that's what they're planning for America. And they've already arrived.
That's right.
They're in all 50 states.
That's right. Yeah, ISIS has claimed that they actually have warehouses in all 50 states in America.
Wow.
So Steve Rogers just said on this program, this is World War III. I've been saying it. Almost every guest on our show has been saying it.
Absolutely.
And today's program, you're going to hear a lot this week from Rabbi Jonathan Cahn. He's already warned us with his book when he said that the harbinger, 9/11, was just the first. It was the warning.
That's right.
And now we're living in the destruction that's coming. The harbinger has not been heeded.
That's right.
We did not repent. We did not humble ourselves. We said we'll build bigger and better without God. And we have, I almost said, damned God. We don't have respect for God. Judgment is coming.
It has to come.
And when, in Charisma Magazine, when they said we are entering the Revelation chapter 6, verse 8, that's the fourth horse of the apocalypse. That's disease. That's famine.
That's right. Yeah, one-fourth of the world is going to be completely devastated from that. Just that one horseman. And now is the time. This is what we're urging you. Now is the time to get prepared. As Pastor Jim got that word that was downloaded to him from the Lord, that this Genesis 41, that they had the 7 good years to prepare, the time of plentiful, the time of abundance. That's what we're in right now. We are in that window.
And the known world would have been dead.
Right.
If Joseph hadn't obeyed God and prepared and had food put away.
That's right.
And God spoke to me. I had to go to a prison. And I don't compare myself with Joseph, but he ended up in a prison. I ended up in a prison. And it was in the prison where God spoke to me that I had to warn the people to get ready. So here is the food that we have prepared. And if you've not prepared, please get ready. Because what's going to happen? Did you see what happened? Did you see the video on TV of what happens in Brussels, Belgium?
Yes.
They close, everything closed down. Well, if the big things happen, our enemies plan to shut the grid down.
Yes.
That means America will not have food. It will not be moving. They shut Brussels down.
Yes.
Just a matter of a... Go ahead, Sasha.
Just a city of 1 million people is virtually shut down, no movement. The Prime Minister was urging people not to move and just keep everything at a minimum movement. That is a full major city, and so if we know that these things are coming to America, we have to prepare today while we still have time.
And it was just a handful.
Yeah.
And one of the first things we're doing, and we need to get back to Rabbi's program with us, this food right here, this is something that is so heavy on my heart.
Yes.
And this is the 90-day bucket, which is basically 3 months of food in here. You're going to need more than that, but you can get started. You could order a bucket a month for the next 6 months and be prepared while we still have good time, and it's going to get worse and worse. But we have time to put it away.
That's
we
right.
have time to store the food. And here's what we're going to do. I believe one of the things that can save America is if we reach out and feed the poor. We reach out and send the food to the Christians over in the Mideast, which we have been, I really believe God spoke to us to do this. And I believe when we give, God gives back. What does He say in the Scriptures? He says, if you give to the hungry and the poor, He said, you're lending to God. Wouldn't you like to lend something to God?
Amen.
God came to your door, and Jesus came up there and said, I need to borrow a cup of sugar. That's what they used to do in the old days. You know, you'd go and give them the whole bag. You'd say, whatever you want. I want to fix dinner for you. But if we give to God, God says, I'm going to give back to you. I'm going to give to you. I'm going to take care of you.
That's right.
He even said, I'm going to be your doctor or nurse, it says in one version, that I'm going to take care of you when you get sick. And it's so important. So if you would like to do this, and what we're doing, we're asking people monthly to make a pledge and say, every month I want you to send it, be kind of like auto give. And every month you'll get a 90-day bucket, and every month for 6 months we'll send a 50-day bucket to the poor and hungry in the Mideast that have been people and their families. They've been crucified. They've been burnt in cages. They have had their heads cut off. And they're starving to death as well.
Yes, and these survivors over there, we're trying to send them these buckets so we can make sure that they continue to survive and that they continue to have food and to be able to feed their families. And so with your gift today, you can help those people overseas in the Middle East that are surviving persecution today.
And if you do it for 1 year, by the end of that year, you'll actually have 3 years of food, of this emergency food sitting at your house, and you will have sent 600 days of food to the Middle East, to the Christians that are experiencing persecution.
This is a year of food.
Yes, it is.
This is your year of food. Now, how many did you say?
It ends up being, after 1 year, 3 years of food at your house.
Wow. Can you imagine? You'll have a 3-year food supply, and you will give all of this food,
600 days
of buckets of food that can go to different families. It will last 20 years.
20 years.
So it's not going to spoil ever.
That's right.
They'll be eating it right away, believe me. And we want to ship the food as fast as you order it, as fast as you help us. And I'll tell you what, when you sow these are square buckets, so they fit in the big containers on the ships. We'll put these in a container, and we can actually get 2,000 more buckets in a container by using this special bucket that's square, and they all just tuck in there together. But you will be responsible for feeding multitudes of people.
Amen.
And what a blessing. You're sowing to others. What you sow, you reap, the Bible says. And then we're seeing to it right now, because we're sending you, when you join this 6 months club, we're sending you 90 days of food every month when you give.
The Lord says that He doesn't do anything in the world, upon the earth, without first telling His prophets. We've heard from Hugh B. Sin that famine is coming to America. We've heard from you that famine is coming to America. We've heard from Genesis chapter 6 that famine is coming to America. And we've heard from Heidi Baker that famine is coming to America.
And there's some of you that perhaps would like to order a year of food right now and just say, I want to put a year away. And we have the year of food, and that's for a gift of $600. And when you order a year of food this week, you get 2 bonuses. You get white rice bonus and the sliced potato bonus. And we call them food extenders. So you can extend your foods. You can add them to any of these recipes. So for $600, you receive a year of food plus extenders. This is for a year for 2 people, or it'd be 2 years of food for one person. But this is $1,100, and it's tasty food for 2, plus the multipliers, which you get 2 buckets of potatoes.
That's right.
And 2 buckets
of the rice.
People, get ready. It's time is running out. And then my favorite of all my offers I've ever done is my 7 years of food.
The Joseph offer.
And it's bigger. This is the Joseph Storehouse offer. We talked about it. And it had, look at all of this food. 7 years of food. Why wouldn't you want to do that? And then the multipliers, you have 3 buckets of dehydrated potato slices. And I'm telling you, you'd be so shocked when you add the water to these potatoes. It's like fresh potatoes. And you can create all kinds of dishes. And then with the white rice, use 3 buckets of white rice, which you can add to almost any of these dishes, which like company drops in, which they're going to do. When they find out you got food, you're going to have company, believe me.
Yes.
But that rice will just multiply.
That's right.
You take almost any one of these dishes, any of these soups, and you can have creamy potato soup and add rice to it. Anything. You could add
stroganoff.
Yeah. Any of these foods. This is the best food. The best survival food ever made.
And it also comes with the Garden Survival Seed Kit. 20 different vegetables and fruits that are heirloom. You can replant them every year.
Like here's squash. Here's peas. You could add those to the sauce and the soups and the different dishes. And you talk about extending food. And so you will have a garden for decades to come because you can replant the seeds that you get from your harvest. And, of course, your garden gloves and your foldable shovel, which is so good for so many things. And believe me, you're going to need a shovel if the water stops running and the sewers stop running. You will need, and this is an amazing bonus gift for this food. Well, you know what just happened? What just happened in Brussels, Belgium, the beautiful city? ISIS said they're going to destroy Belgium, Brussels especially. But they said, we are going to destroy, we are going to bomb. And nobody believed it, I guess. I think some did, but most didn't. But they did what they said they're going to do. And now they're saying, we are going to destroy the United States of America. And America is not prepared. Are you prepared? Be ready. Let's go back to our program right now with Rabbi Jonathan Cahn. I want to roll this another clip, could we, from your speech at the United Nations, the one about Israel.
Yeah, what happened? I went there, and as I'm doing this, and I got the thing from the Lord, I believe. And then I'm there, and I see all sorts of people coming in with turbans and Muslims, and I'm thinking, I want to talk about Israel. I said, okay, Lord, so it's kind of thing where you keep the car running, when you're preaching. I said, I cannot. I have to, because there's been so much hatred of Israel in this place among the nations. I have to lift up Israel here. So I believe you have a short clip from that.
Yes.
Okay, let's roll that one.
The light of the world came as the Messiah, as the shepherd of Israel. He wept over Jerusalem, and as he foresaw the future of his people, the children of Israel. But for most of these last 2,000 years, those who called themselves by the name of Messiah did not love his own people, but hated them, vilified them, oppressed and wounded them, hunted them down, and delivered them to their deaths, Jewish men, women, and children. Messiah's own family killed in the name of him who for them shed his love. We must love those on every side of every conflict. We must seek the blessing and peace of all. At the same time, if we claim to be a Messiah and have no love for his own people, the people of his own heart, we cannot claim to be a Messiah. In a world that has proven to be hostile and dangerous to Jewish existence, those who are called by the name of Messiah must of all people bring the love of Messiah to those who brought the Messiah to the world. To fulfill the command of God, as it is written, comfort ye my people, speak kindly to Jerusalem, and he will bless those who bless them.
Thank you for standing up. I am so, I was going to say proud that I know you, but I'm not supposed to be prideful. And it's not a pride, but it's just honor to know you that God has chosen to speak out for not just for your people, for God's people, for all people. And the voices have been silenced so much.
Yeah.
But so many today, they're adjusting their message to make sure they don't offend anyone.
Yeah.
But when you're trying to not offend other religions that don't believe in Jesus Christ, you're in trouble. I am not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Right.
The Bible tells me.
Be not ashamed. The gospel will cause offense. If we're going to make we have to be different to make a difference. If we're going to make any difference in this world, we have to do it. And it's not about any of us. God will give everyone the opportunity who will stand for Him. But don't be ashamed. And the other thing is that when God looks at you and He says, you know, it's like if you have a friend and they stand up for you when it's hard to stand up for you, that's when you say, that's my friend.
That's right.
And so the Lord is looking down. Now is the time of our testing. And He's looking for those who are standing up now, and He's saying, that's my friend.
Wow.
That's my bride. That's my one. You know, we've been always talking all these years about, well, the persecution's going to come, end times, persecution. We talk about it all the time, and we're going to, well, now it comes. Now we can actually see the first fruits of it, and people go silent. This is our testing. This is what we talked about all these years.
Oh my
Let's
gosh.
be what we talked about.
That's
what God
so
called us to be.
Amen. Amen. I have so much I want to talk about today. And we talked about the Shemitah.
About the stock market.
A few days ago, probably. But we talked about the stock market part.
Right.
There's more to the Shemitah.
Yes, there is.
Could we deal with that for a few minutes?
Yeah, I'll show you some things with that. Yeah, first of all, one of the things in the Harbinger and in the Mystery of the Shemitah, you'll actually see the words appear. It says the effects of the Shemitah, the repercussions, not only affect the financial realm, but the realm of production, consumption, and trade. Now, specifically that. Because in the Bible, when you had the Shemitah, the land stopped producing. They didn't have industry like we do, but they had production. The land stopped producing. They stopped selling the fruit, so trade stops or decreases. And, well, in the modern times, that translates to trade and all those things. So here's the question. Did the Shemitah affect not just the stock market, all that, but actually all these other realms? And I want to show you something. If you have global trade, you have the headline on global trade. This is what happened. This is what the Shemitah did to global trade. Plummets 70%. 70% in 3 weeks.
Wow.
Let's do the next one on global trade. It's collapsing. Was literally the Shemitah really in that time? It collapsed. Next one, world trade. It's his biggest since when? 2008, the other Shemitah. Again, and this is not Christian. This is secular. Okay. The next one, I believe they have one more. In free fall, literally, I mean, this is one of the most uncovered stories of the last year, and that is that global trade has totally collapsed. I mean, to this day. Now, here we have a graph of, in a moment, you're going to see the pink area represents the Shemitah. This is world imports. Look at what happened at world imports. You see it's high up with a blue.
Yeah.
Then once the Shemitah comes, look what happens. It goes down and below that level. It collapses to nearly half. There's something called the Baltic Dry Index. Let me tell you what that is. And you have to know, we don't know a lot. Well, it measures basically shipping and world trade. Well, see the headline on the Baltic Dry Index, what the Shemitah did to the Baltic Dry Index. This year, it was the worst in 30 years. But the fact is, the Baltic Dry Index only existed for 30 years, so it's the worst ever in the history of the world. Show the next one. Their Baltic Dry Index, I believe you have an all-time low, totally collapsed. I'll give you an example. You know, the Shemitah was 2014, 2015. 2014 began, the Baltic Index was at 2,000. By the end of 2015, it was at 400. It wiped out like 80% of it. Okay. Another thing you'll read.
No, that's trade. That's
trade. That's trade.
That's hard goods. Dry goods is not. It's not necessarily the market at all. It's actual goods.
It's the real thing. It's the real economy. It's not speculation like the markets. It's real trade and goods. Yeah, and that's going to bring it to the next one. One of the things you'll see in the Harbinger on the Mystery of the Shemitah, that chapter, and I believe in the Mystery of the Shemitah, is also, it says in the Shemitah, the fruit of the land is abandoned. So therefore, today, economically, we'd expect commodities to be unsold, piling up, merchandise to pile up. Well, look, demand drives up. Look what happened to commodities. The commodity slump, 16-year low. This is the Shemitah. Next one. Worst year for dry bulk commodities worst year on record was the Shemitah. Now, I'm going to show you a chart from Bloomberg News on what happens at the Shemitah and the commodity market. Let's see that graph. Look what happened.
Oh, wow.
Look what happened as it approaches the end of the Shemitah. Wipeout.
Hits bottom.
Now, one of those. This is what happened. This is what you know. This is one of the biggest stories, and most people haven't heard it. The other thing is what happened to another commodity called oil. Let's see the next graph, and I want you to see something here on oil. Now, that's by 14 years. You see the pink?
Yes.
The first pink is 2008 Shemitah. Look what happened to oil.
Crash.
Second pink is 2015. Look what happened to oil.
Down the same.
So this is the Shemitah. Now you go to the gas station.
And we're right there. And we're down in that bottom right
we
now,
are.
aren't we?
You go to the gas station and you have cheap. You can thank the Shemitah for that. but
now
it's
wait
not,
a minute.
Yeah.
Everybody, you understand the Shemitah. The Shemitah is a God timing.
Yes, the collapse of trade has not stopped. And if you look at this next one, this is what happened since to this point around where we are right now. It's continued to collapse. All these things have collapsed. So this is the effect. God is very, very, very real. And so the fact is, it happened actually, in the book, in both things. The overall pattern is exactly this: that it affects every realm. And even though I haven't yet touched on the dramatic day crashes, which we will, it even affected that too. But this is the absolute pattern that you'll read in the books.
Is it true that you're working on a new book? And I know you can't tell us the title probably yet. We don't want it. You don't have to.
I could do the title. I can't show the cover yet.
Okay. So you have a new book you're working on.
You've actually been here at Morningside in your beautiful room.
When I came in last night, I was working on it here.
And you're actually writing your book here.
Yeah.
Everywhere you go, right?
I've done that with the Shemitah, the Mystery Shemitah too. That's also it's going to be called The Book of Mysteries.
Oh, that's
good. And it should come out in September. It should come out in September. And it's going to have everything. I can tell you that. And so I'm working on it continuously, like every day, 4 pages a day, getting near the end of it. But just pray for it. Pray God use it. But and probably the next time I'm here, I'll be able to show the cover.
Oh,
and the first time again I ever saw The Harbinger was literally when I came. I had to come here to see The Harbinger.
Yes.
The first copy was here.
It's true.
The first copy I ever signed was to Jim and Lori. The first time I ever signed any book, so it's probably be the same.
I hope so.
but I'll show you. That's what it'll be called.
I hope so. I really do hope so.
We're excited for that book.
And God is using you.
Yeah.
And I do want to mention about our amazing generator that people are ordering them like crazy. It is just amazing. And we were so thankful that extra ship came in, and they lowered the price from the factories, from everywhere. And if you want to get one and have power to power your telephones, to power your television sets, to power your 12-volt heating blankets, to power your electric saws, to power all kinds of little things. Even most new of the wash machines will run off this, and just depends on the voltage.
That's right.
But it's an amazing thing. One of the key things, it will run your refrigerator and your freezer to keep it. You just run a few hours a day then to keep it from losing all your food.
That's right. And you can get it for a donation of only $1,784. This is the cheapest that we have ever offered the generator. And it still comes with a 20-foot solar extension cord, which is a retail value of $50. And it comes with a foldable solar panel, which is a retail value of $500.
Yeah, it comes with the electric cord to plug it in. So you can charge it up when the power's running.
That's right.
Before a storm hits, you can charge it up with this cord. Then this cord runs to the panel.
That's right.
Which is an amazing panel. We've reduced the panels because we have a lot of them in the factory now. They finally caught up. And they're usually $500 for that folding solar. That is your source. That's like having an eternal gas tank, only that you're using the sun.
Right.
And the roof on our bedroom. And run the cord down. And we put a plug for these cords. And then we just plug them in to here. And it is just an amazing thing to be able to have that. And so this is one of the few times we have the special solar panels at a reduced deal just to help. Well, it'll clear the warehouse out now. Those units aren't going to be sold anymore. But it'll give you a bargain like we've never been able to offer before. So I just wanted to do that. We'll be right back with more of our guest, Rabbi Jonathan Cahn. But first, I want to share something with you. You know, last week, there was a horrible attack in Brussels, Belgium. The airport has been completely closed for several days.
That's right.
Our enemies are the same enemies as the enemies of Brussels, as Paris, as England.
And the same type of threats that they said that was coming to Brussels are the same type of threats that they say is coming to America.
And when we try to warn, and people that, like some of our guests that have been here, have tried to warn us about ISIS.
Yes. Like Brigitte Gabriel.
Yes.
Like General Jerry Boykin. And many others.
And who claimed that they were responsible? The Islamic State claimed responsibility.
That's right. They're even celebrating it.
And, you know, basically dancing in the streets over it. And they're saying they're going to do the same thing to America. In fact, their number one goal is to drop an EMP bomb on the United States of America. What does that mean? That's the electrical magnetic bomb that will shut our power down, shut the grid down, shut the water down, shut the sewers down, shut all transportation down. Airplanes would drop out of the sky at that moment, no movement. And in a year's time, they tell us up to 95% of America would be dead. You don't want to be in the dark, as well as, of course, death is the ultimate goal of our enemy.
That's right.
But putting us in the dark, not being able to have any communication, not to be able to run any communication system, not be able to have lights, not to be able to even play a CD or a DVD. And we are almost out of our wonderful fuelless generator. This unit has been the most amazing product that I've ever discovered.
Yes.
And we have them at our house, and they were right at $3,500 when we decided that we were going to go with a new version that was going to be created, and it's still being worked on. So it's not ready to ship it. But these are, we have the last of these, and believe me, this has had the least problems of any item I think I've ever offered on the show. And I have 4 of them at my house, and I wouldn't live without them.
And we ended up bringing the price all the way down to $2,000. And then we actually ended up running out of the hand cranks. And the hand cranks are for a retail value of $216. So we actually knocked that off of the donation price as well. So you can get a generator, the solar panel, and the 50-foot solar extension cord for a donation of only $1,784 to the ministry.
And you will have your best friend besides Jesus, this generator, fuelless generator, to have this in your house, even if you just have a storm and the power goes out.
That's right.
This is your fuelless generator. It comes with the panel. Here's one right here. It folds up like a briefcase, suitcase, and you can put it in your trunk. You can carry it wherever you want to go. So if you have to run away from your house, you grab this. There's a handle on it. You grab it. You pick it up.
You just put it in the back of your car, and you're ready to go.
And you put this. This has a handle on it right here.
Yes, it does.
Here it is. And you just take this. You grab this. You put this in your car. You put the solar panel in your car. Then you put the cords. The cord comes with it, 20-foot long. That's a $50 cord.
Yes.
That comes with it. And then, of course, you have the electrical cord. You want to always have that in case, you know, the electricity is on. So as soon as you get this, make sure it's charged up. It should be charged up when you get it.
Just plug it straight into the wall.
Plug this into the wall, and you will have it all charged up, and it will stay charged up for a long, long time. In fact, in a year, it's probably 95% still charged up.
That's right. And one of the most incredible things about this, many of our viewers don't know this, but you can actually put up to 3 solar panels in the unit at one time. Now, one solar panel already comes with it, but we're doing a special right now. The solar panel has a retail value of $500. You can get another solar panel for a donation of $450 to the ministry, and we're throwing in as an extra bonus the $50 20-foot solar extension cord as well.
That's right.
I'm telling you, people the last few days are ordering like crazy. They're going to be going.
Yeah.
The panels are worth $500. That's the retail value. Yes. And we're doing it for $450. And so you get on top of that the cord, which is a $50 cord. You're getting that with it.
That's right.
And so it's about $100 off from this deal right here. And if you would like to be able to plug in 3, you get one with it. So if you order 2 more, you will be able to charge this generator up in like 2 hours.
That's right.
That's right.
And you have a full charge, which will run you the whole next night. Just run you all night long. And I know I've sat there and watched the big screen television when everything was out.
Yeah.
8 hours I ran it. 8 hours watching the big screen. I even plugged DirecTV box. You know, that takes power.
Oh, yeah.
And I plugged the lamp in.
That's right.
And sat there in my house. The power's gone. I'm watching television all night, getting all that, and the whole neighborhood's dark. But if you want to, I put 3 of them on my roof. Is what I did. I actually have 6. I have 3 above the bedroom and 3 above the kitchen. And so I have them. So I put a cord down and made a plug-in right in the house. So these cords are just plug right in together.
That's right.
And it's an amazing thing. So if you want to get one of these for $450, and it unfolds, you can see it out there unfolded, but it comes like this for $450, and you will get the cord, the 20-foot cord that plugs right here into here, and it plugs in. And as we close them out, the factory that we get these gave to you a grill.
Yes, a foldable grill.
And a pot to cook in.
Yes.
And a whole bunch of food.
The 72 hours for 2 people. This all comes with your generator when you order it today.
This is so great for a grab-and-go bag. If you don't have your grab-and-go bag, you always need a grab-and-go bag. All of this is a bonus as well as, you know, the lowest price we've ever offered the fuelless generator. I'll tell you what. Our enemies, the same enemies that destroyed the airport at Brussels, Belgium, that group of people are the same ones that said they're going to destroy America. I mean, when I saw that airport being bombed and the people running, I thought, my Lord, another 9/11. That's what it looked like. The people running, the people screaming. And they're planning another 9/11, only they want to top what they did at 9/11.
That's right.
So what I'm saying is, if you ever get ready, do it now. One day it's going to be too late. Let's get back to Rabbi Jonathan Cahn. We do have to go.